I'm 62 years old now, and I've learned that the best decisions we make in life are often the ones that feel uncomfortable at the time. Back in 1995, when I was 32 and standing in that attorney's office, signing the deed to my very first condo in downtown Denver, my lawyer friend Sarah looked me dead in the eye and said something I'll never forget. "Emma, if you ever get married, think very carefully before you tell your husband about this place. Not all love stories have happy endings." I remember laughing it off, thinking she was being paranoid. 3 years later, I'd be thanking God I took her advice. Let me back up. I need to tell you how I got to that point, because the details matter. They always do. In 1992, I'd just gotten promoted to senior marketing manager at a telecommunications company in Denver. I was making good money, better than I ever imagined I would, and for the first time in my life, I had something substantial in my savings account. I'd been renting a small apartment in Capitol Hill, but I wanted something more, something that was truly mine. My mother had lost her house in her divorce when I was 16. I watched her pack up 30 years of her life into cardboard boxes because she never thought to protect herself financially. My father's lawyer argued that since he'd paid most of the mortgage, the house was primarily his. My mother had nothing in writing to prove otherwise. That memory haunted me. So when I had enough for a down payment, I started looking for a place to buy. Not rent. Buy. I wanted a deed with my name on it. Something nobody could take from me. I found a beautiful 2-bedroom condo in the Condo district in 1995. It was $175,000, which was a fortune back then. I put down 20%, $35,000 from 8 years of careful saving. The mortgage was steep, but I could manage it. More importantly, it was mine. The deed said Emma Marie Richardson and nobody else. Sarah helped me with all the paperwork. She made sure everything was in my name only. "You're smart, Em," she told me over coffee after we finished the closing. "A lot of women don't think about these things until it's too late." "I learned from watching my mom," I said. "Good. Keep learning. Keep protecting yourself." I moved into that condo in April of 1995, and I loved every inch of it. I painted the walls myself, chose every piece of furniture, made it exactly what I wanted. For 2 years, it was my sanctuary, just mine. Then I met James Mitchell. It was the summer of 1997. I was at a company networking event, and he was there representing some real estate investment firm. He was 34, charming, good-looking, and he had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. We talked for hours that night. He seemed successful, drove a nice car, wore expensive suits. He told me he was an entrepreneur, that he had several business ventures going. I should have asked more questions about what those ventures actually were, but I didn't. I was charmed. We dated for a year and a half. He was attentive, romantic, took me to nice restaurants. He met Sarah, who was polite but later pulled me aside and said, "There's something about him I can't quite put my finger on. Just be careful, okay?" I brushed her off. I was in love. About 8 months into our relationship, James started dropping hints about moving in together. His lease was ending, he said. Why pay for 2 places when we spent every night together anyway? It made sense. Financially, I hesitated, remembering what Sarah had told me years ago, but love makes you do foolish things sometimes. "We could save so much money," James said, his hand on my knee as we sat on my couch. "Think about it, Em. We're heading toward marriage anyway, right? Why wait?" I agreed, but I made a decision. I didn't tell him I owned the condo. When he asked about the landlord, I was vague. I said I had a great arrangement with the building management. He never pushed for details. He moved in September of 1998, bringing his clothes, his furniture, his life into my space. I loved having him there at first. It felt like playing house, like we were a real couple building a future. Red flags started appearing almost immediately, but I ignored them. James never offered to pay any of the mortgage. When bills came, he'd say, "You've got this one, babe? I'm a little short this month." It happened once, twice, a dozen times. He always had an excuse. A deal fell through, a client was late paying, the market was slow. Meanwhile, he still drove that nice car, still wore those expensive suits, still took clients out to expensive lunches on his credit cards. Then there was his mother. Patricia Mitchell arrived for a visit 3 months after James moved in. She was a woman in her 60s, perfectly coiffed, dripping with jewelry that I later learned was all costume. She had this way of looking at my condo, my furniture, my life like it was barely adequate. "James deserves better than this," she said to him, not quite under her breath, as she examined my kitchen. "When you two are married, you'll need to upgrade." "Mom, it's fine," James said, but he wouldn't look at me. Patricia stayed for a week, the longest week of my life. She kept making comments about how I should let James handle the finances, since men were better at that sort of thing. She suggested I should put James's name on the lease, so he'd feel more invested in our home. She even went through my mail one day while I was at work. I came home to find her sitting at my kitchen table, looking through a stack of envelopes. "Just trying to help organize," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. After she left, I called Sarah. "Am I crazy, or is his mother trying to take over my life?" "You're not crazy," Sarah said. "Emma, please tell me you haven't put his name on anything. The condo, your accounts, anything." "No, nothing. Thank God." "Keep it that way." James proposed that December, on Christmas Eve. It was romantic, everything I thought I wanted. We got married in February of 1999, a small ceremony, just family and close friends. My mother was there, looking worried the entire time. She pulled me aside before I walked down the aisle. "Emma, honey, I need to ask you something. Did you get a prenuptial agreement?" "No, Mom." James said it meant I didn't trust him. Her face fell. "Baby, after what happened to me, I thought you'd know better. I kept the condo in my name only," I whispered. "He doesn't know I own it." For the first time that day, my mother smiled. "Smart girl. That's my daughter." 3 months into our marriage, everything changed. It was a Tuesday morning in May, and I'd just gotten to work when my assistant buzzed my office. "Emma, there's a call for you on line 2. Says it's urgent, something about your property." My stomach dropped. I picked up the phone. "Mrs. Mitchell? This is Linda Rodriguez from Front Range Closing Services. I'm calling about your upcoming property sale. We just need to verify a few details for the closing next week." The room started spinning. "I'm sorry, what sale?" There was a pause. "The sale of your property at 1842 Blake Street, Unit 304? We have you listed as the seller." That was my address. "My condo." "There must be some mistake," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm not selling my property." Another pause, longer this time. "Ma'am, we have a signed contract here. The buyers have already put down earnest money. The closing is scheduled for next Tuesday at 2 p.m. "Who signed that contract?" "According to our records, you did. We have your signature on file." I hung up and immediately called Sarah. "I need you. Now. Someone is trying to sell my condo." She was at my office within 30 minutes. We drove to the closing company together. Linda Rodriguez was a small woman in her 50s who looked very confused when we walked in. "I need to see that contract," Sarah said, her lawyer voice fully activated. Linda pulled the file. There, on page 12, was a signature, Emma Richardson Mitchell. It looked like my handwriting, but it wasn't. "I never signed this." "This is forgery," Sarah said flatly. "Who brought you this contract?" Linda checked her notes. "A James Mitchell. He said his wife, that's you, was too busy to come in person, so she'd signed everything at home." My heart stopped. My husband did this? Sarah was already pulling out her phone. "Linda, I need copies of everything in that file. Emma, don't say anything else. We're going to the police." The next few hours were a blur. We filed a police report. I called my bank and had them pull the original deed. My name. Only my name. Crystal clear. Then Sarah and I went home, to my condo, where James was lounging on my couch, watching my TV. "Hey, babe," he said when I walked in. "You're home early. We need to talk," I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. "Sure, what's up?" Sarah stepped into view behind me. James's expression changed instantly. Guilt flashed across his face before he could hide it. "Want to tell me about the contract you signed to sell my condo?" I asked. "I can explain," he started. "You forged my signature," Sarah cut in. "That's a felony, James." He stood up, hands out in a placating gesture. Listen, it's not what you think. I was trying to help us. This place, it's too small. I found us a buyer, and with the profit, we could upgrade, get something better, something bigger for when we have kids. This is my condo, I said slowly. Mine, not ours. I bought it 3 years before I met you. The deed is in my name only. You have no right to sell it. His face went pale. What do you mean, your condo? I thought we were renting. You thought wrong. There was a long silence. I watched the emotions play across his face. Confusion, then realization, then something ugly. Anger. You lied to me, he said. All this time, you owned this place and you never told me? What kind of wife does that? The kind who learned from her mother's mistakes, I shot back. The kind who apparently married a man who would forge her signature and try to steal her property. I wasn't stealing. I was trying to make our lives better. By selling something that isn't yours? James ran his hand through his hair. My mom was right about you. She said you were selfish, that you didn't trust me. I defended you, Em. I told her she was wrong. And there it was. Your mother knew about this? He didn't answer, but he didn't need to. Get out, I said. This is my home too. No, Sarah interjected. It's not. Legally, you have no claim to this property. You're not on the deed, you haven't paid a dime of the mortgage, and you just committed fraud. I suggest you pack a bag and leave before the police show up. He left, but not before grabbing a suitcase and shouting that I'd regret this, that he'd fight me, that his lawyer would make sure I lost everything. He went straight to his mother's house. I know because she called me 2 hours later. Emma, dear. Patricia's voice oozed fake sweetness through the phone. James told me about your little misunderstanding. I think we should all sit down and talk this through like adults. There's nothing to talk about, Patricia. Your son forged my signature to try to sell my property. The police are involved. The police? Her voice changed, losing the sweetness. Now, you don't want to do that. Think about James's reputation, his career. Think about the family you're destroying. I am thinking about family. My family. The one that apparently includes a con artist and his accomplice. How dare you! James is a good man. He was only trying to provide for you. If you had just been honest with him from the beginning about owning that condo, none of this would have happened. You brought this on yourself. I hung up. Over the next week, things escalated fast. James hired a lawyer who tried to argue that, as my husband, he had community property rights. In Colorado, that's not how it works with property owned before marriage, but they tried anyway. My lawyer, Sarah's recommendation, was a fierce woman named Diana Chen who tore their arguments apart. The investigation into the forgery turned up something interesting. This wasn't James's first time. He'd been married before, twice actually, something he conveniently forgot to mention. Both marriages ended badly. Both ex-wives had complaints about financial manipulation. The second wife had actually filed charges for something similar but dropped them when he agreed to a quick divorce. Patricia had helped him both times. She was the one who'd arranged for the paperwork, who'd found buyers, who'd coached him on what to say. They'd been running this con for years. Find a woman with assets, marry her, take what they could, and move on. I'd been the biggest score, the owner of valuable real estate in a hot market. The forged signature was just the latest step. If I'd actually been renting, they would have waited until I told James about my savings, my investment accounts, my retirement fund. They were patient predators. When I found all this out, sitting in Diana's office, reading through the investigator's report, I felt sick. I'd loved this man. I'd married him. I'd built a life with him. Or thought I had. And all of it had been a lie. Emma, Diana said gently, I know this is hard, but you need to know how lucky you are. If you hadn't kept that deed in your name only, if you hadn't had Sarah's advice all those years ago, you could have lost everything. She was right. I was lucky. Lucky that my mother's pain had taught me to protect myself. Lucky that Sarah had been paranoid. Lucky that I'd listened to that little voice in the back of my head that said, don't tell him everything. The criminal case moved forward. James was charged with forgery and attempted fraud. Patricia was charged as an accomplice. I filed for divorce the same week. The divorce was quick because there were no shared assets to divide. James tried to claim he deserved spousal support since he'd given up his career to support our marriage. Diana laughed in court. She brought in his tax returns, showing he'd barely worked in 3 years and had been living off my income. The judge was not amused by James's arguments. The divorce was finalized in 4 months. James got nothing. I kept my condo, my savings, my investments, everything. The criminal trial took longer. James's lawyer tried to make a deal, wanted him to plead to lesser charges. The prosecutor, a woman who'd seen too many cases like mine, refused. She wanted the felony conviction. She got it. James was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Patricia got probation and community service as a first-time offender, though we all knew she wasn't. My condo felt different after everything happened. It was still mine, still beautiful, but haunted by what almost happened. Sarah came over one evening, about 6 months after the divorce was final. We sat on my balcony, drinking wine, watching the sunset over downtown Denver. "You know what I can't stop thinking about?" I said. "If I'd told him about this place when we first started dating, or when we got engaged, or even on our wedding day, I'd have lost it. I'd have put his name on the deed because that's what wives do, right? We share everything." "Not everything," Sarah said. "And that's okay. Sharing your life with someone doesn't mean giving them the power to destroy you." My mother tried to tell me that. "Your mother is a smart woman. So are you. You trusted your gut, Em. You felt something was off, even when you were in love, and you protected yourself. That's not being paranoid or untrusting. That's being smart." I sold the condo 3 years later. In 2002, the market had gone up, and I made a healthy profit. I bought a small house in Highlands, a neighborhood I'd always loved. I lived there alone for several years, dated occasionally but never seriously. I built a good life, a full life, one that was entirely mine. I'm 62 now. I retired last year from that same telecommunications company after 40 years of working my way up to VP of marketing. I never remarried. I had relationships, good ones, but I never felt the need to legally bind myself to anyone again. I learned that you can love someone without giving them power over your entire life. My mother passed away 5 years ago. Before she died, she held my hand and said, "I'm so proud of you, Emma. You learned what I couldn't teach myself until it was too late." I think about James sometimes, though not often. I looked him up once, about 10 years ago. He'd moved to Florida, married again, divorced again. Some people never change. Patricia died a few years back. I didn't go to the funeral. Sarah is still my best friend. She's retiring next year, and we're planning to travel Europe together. We joke that we're 2 old women who never needed men to have adventure. But the truth is, we both learned the hard way that sometimes the greatest adventure is protecting yourself. I've told my story to exactly 4 people over the years. My niece, when she got engaged. My neighbor's daughter, when she bought her first house. A young woman at work, when she asked me about marriage advice. And now you. Here's what I want you to understand. When I decided not to tell James about my condo, I didn't do it because I didn't trust him. I did it because I trusted myself. I trusted my mother's experience. I trusted Sarah's advice. I trusted that little voice inside that said, "Protect yourself first." That's not selfish. That's survival. If you own property before marriage, keep it in your name. If you have savings, keep separate accounts. If someone pressures you to prove your trust by giving them access to everything you own, that's not love. That's control. A partner who truly loves you will understand. They'll respect your boundaries. They'll never ask you to make yourself vulnerable just to make them feel secure. James used to say I didn't trust him. He was right. I didn't fully trust him, and thank God I didn't, because he proved exactly why that caution was warranted. Real trust isn't